Thanks, John. And let me begin by thanking the organizers, Tony, Mark, and the crew for all their hard work in organizing this symposium. Thank all of you for coming. And I also want to thank Kevin Johnson for coming as a keynote speaker. Really great to have him here as well. So as John said, I'm a translational bioinformatician, and I really work in this space between bioinformatics and computational biology and clinical research informatics, and also touch on public health informatics. My primary interest is developing computational algorithms, machine learning, artificial intelligence, visual analytics approaches that embrace the complexity of the kinds of problems that we're all, healthcare problems that we're all interested in. I firmly believe that we, this year, have entered the golden era of biomedical informatics. I think it started, and this is our time. This is our time, and it's an exciting time. And there are a couple of reasons why I think this is the beginning of the golden era. First of all, we have data, and we have more data than we know what to do with. We have easy, cheap access to high-performance computing, more so than ever before. We have talented trainees. Many of you have set up training programs over the last 10 years to train the next generation of informaticians, and those programs are starting to churn out talented scientists, and we're hiring them up at our institutions as fast as we can. So it's a good time to be building our informatics community, and that's happening very nicely. There's government recognition that this is the golden era. The NIH just hired Philip Warren as its chief data scientist, and we have new funding programs like the BD2K program to develop computational methods for big data analysis. So these are important developments because the NIH has not paid attention to informatics and the data sciences as much as it should have over the years, but they're starting to, and I think this is going to continue to grow as they recognize the importance. There's certainly plenty of industry recognition. Companies are hiring our faculty, our students, as fast as they can get them and paying them twice as much as we can. I think this is a key recognition that the golden era has begun. Patient recognition, right? Patients are now enabled by informatics to make their own healthcare decisions, and this is an important development. It puts informatics in the hands of our patient population. And finally, university investment. Universities across the country are investing in informatics centers, institutes, programs, new departments, and this is happening at many, many institutions across the country, happening here in Philadelphia on a large scale. And this is at a time when most medical schools, most universities are struggling financially. And to carve out funding when other areas are hurting to pump into informatics, I think is a strong recognition of how important this is to everything we do. So what next? What do we look forward to in this golden era? I've listed a couple areas here that are important to me. I'm sure each of you could add a couple bullets to this list. I'm going to talk mostly about artificial intelligence today. But biomedical devices, the Internet of Things, healthcare devices are becoming big. I think informatics has a really important role to play in that area, connecting with bioengineering. Data integration, of course, is a huge area that we need to put more time into. Data science is really taking off. Data science, I'm not going to say anything more about, but I think data science is exciting because it combines informatics with statistics and in an interdisciplinary way to solve complex problems. Informaticians are traditionally not trained in statistics, and statisticians are traditionally not trained in informatics. And data science is now incentivizing people to cross-train in those areas, and that's going to have a huge impact on everything we do. I'm going to say a few words at the end about the informatician scientist. I firmly believe that informaticians are in a really important role to drive scientific investigation, which has traditionally not been the case, and I'll say a few words about that. No boundary thinking is a pet project of mine. I lead a team of investigators from around the country pushing this idea of no boundary thinking, that informaticians can look across disciplines and ask better questions than disciplinarians can. And finally, I'll end with some thoughts about visual analytics. I firmly believe that the future of informatics has to be visual. So I'm going to touch on AI, the informatician scientist, no boundary thinking, and visual analytics in the presentation. So for those of you not familiar with artificial intelligence, maybe some of the younger people in the room, trainees, what I thought I'd do is just give you a little bit of background about AI, what it is, where it came from, because I think it's going to have a huge impact in the next 10 years in informatics and healthcare. So the idea of artificial intelligence is that we can develop computers that can plan, solve problems, and reason. And Alan Turing was one of the fathers of this discipline. And he asked the question in the 1950s, can machines think? And how could you tell? How could we all tell if a machine can think? And this is now what we commonly call the Turing test. And the idea is pretty simple. If you're sitting at a computer, having a conversation, maybe online through social media, could you tell whether you were talking to a real person on the other end of the internet or talking to a computer? How would you know? And the Turing test the idea is that if you could not tell the difference, then the AI would be said to pass the Turing test and could pass as a person. So, we have Siri and these kinds of tools now. If you've used Siri, you know it's not quite there yet. It's quite limited, but you can see the direction where we're headed. And you can imagine a day when you talk to Siri and you might not know if it's a real person or not. So we think about AI as either top-down or bottom-up, and the people that really developed this discipline thought about it in these two different ways. The top-down approach is the idea of building a machine that mimics the human brain, so that you're actually building an artificial brain that functions very similar to a real brain for problem solving. That's a really, really hard problem, but people are working on that. And then the bottom-up AI is, I think, what is more commonly studied is the idea of building simple agents, neural networks, the pieces and parts that collectively have an emergent behavior that's intelligent. And these are things like neural networks, cellular systems, et cetera. Interestingly, as a factoid that you might not know, the term artificial intelligence was coined in 1956 at a meeting with Marvin Minsky and others in the field at a workshop at Dartmouth College. So artificial intelligence has had a really interesting history in medicine, going back to the 1950s and 60s. And in the early days of artificial intelligence, there was a lot of excitement, right? It's like a new toy. It's like, oh, can you imagine what we can do with this? So there was a lot of interest, a lot of excitement about AI. And then, of course, that led to tremendous hype. So we've got the hype train here in the 1970s and early 80s. Sort of promising what AI is going to do to healthcare and medicine. And of course, it didn't deliver on those promises. And so there was a period of time during the 1980s, 90s, 2000s when AI was kind of a little bit of a dirty word in the field. But there were plenty of serious people that stuck with it, worked on it. And I would say that now is the time for AI to go into production and to have a real impact in healthcare for a whole lot of reasons. A lot of the theories there, the hard work's been done by a lot of smart people. We have the computational horsepower now. We have the data. A lot of good reasons for why AI is poised right now to have a big impact. So let's take just a step back and look at one of the first AI or expert systems that was developed. This is work by Ted Shortliffe in the 1970s. I think he was a student at the time when he developed MYCIN. I've got MYCIN in caps here, and you'll see it in the literature usually in caps. I don't think it's actually an acronym. I think it comes from the MYCIN part of antibiotics. And so they wanted to develop a system that could help physicians make decisions about how to treat patients presenting with an infection. And what is the thought process that a physician goes through, and how do you make decisions about treatment based on the patient's characteristics and where they're coming from, what kind of illness they have, et cetera. And so Ted built this system, and it has these component parts. So up here we have a physician that's presented with a patient, and they're calling this here the consultation system. So the computer presents to the physician a series of questions that the physician answers. And that data goes into a patient database. And then down here at the bottom, we have knowledge acquisition. So presumably infectious disease docs and experts, microbiologists are feeding into the system a set of rules about the state-of-the-art knowledge about making decisions about treatment of infection. And those go into a static database of rules. And these are really in the form of if-then rules. If the patient this, then do that. So this is kind of the knowledge base here. And it can be updated from patient data and experience treating patients. So the idea is that the physician answers a bunch of questions. The system then recommends to the physician a course of action for treatment and provides an explanation for why that treatment should be followed. This is a paper from 1979 in JAMA on evaluating this system in a blinded evaluation by infectious disease experts, and this system beat all the faculty and student trainee experts here, and which was very encouraging. So this was a success, and they documented very carefully in this paper why this system worked better. But unfortunately, it was never used in clinical practice, and there were a couple reasons for that. First of all, there were ethical and legal issues tied to this, right? If a physician makes a mistake, the physician can be held accountable, the patient can sue the physician and work through the court system to address that. But if a computer's making a decision, you can't sue a computer. And so they struggled with how you hold the computer accountable. It was a standalone system. It was kind of a one-off system. And I think the biggest reason this was never implemented is it takes time. It took a physician about 30 minutes to sit down and answer the questions and feed the data in there. And as you all know, our modern physicians certainly don't have an extra 30 minutes to enter data about each patient. So MYCIN never got implemented, but I think it was one of the early successes and one of the reasons that we had some hype around that time about AI and its potential impact in healthcare. And if you're interested, Ted Shortliffe and Bruce Buchanan have a book that they published in 1984 kind of documenting this experience. So let me jump to today. And today we have IBM Watson. And Watson's been in the press quite a bit. And I think Watson's actually a pretty important advance and development in our field, and I think this is a signal to our community that AI is ready for prime time. Watson's not perfect, and I have a lot of issues with Watson, but I think it signifies this golden era where AI is now poised to really have an impact. But Watson combines a lot of things that we're interested in, things like natural language processing, information retrieval, knowledge representation, machine learning, to answer questions and provide answers. And one of its first applications was competing against human experts in Jeopardy. So you probably remember the press around this a couple years ago. And they fed in about 200 million pages of information, 4 terabytes of information, including all of Wikipedia, into a knowledge base that Watson drew upon. It had a big computer with about 2,800 core threads to process information coming in and to search through all of this knowledge to provide an answer. 16 terabytes of RAM, and it beat the Jeopardy experts with no internet connection. So it was doing this on its own as a standalone system. And IBM is now marketing Watson for things like oncology and healthcare, and is trying to sell its services to universities, academic health centers, et cetera. And they've been forming alliances with MD Anderson, Memorial Sloan Kettering, to integrate Watson into their healthcare environments. But this is in the very early stages, and there's a lot of work to do. And I think one of the hardest things is building a knowledge base, right? You have to take everything your oncologists know and put it into a knowledge representation that Watson can work with, and that's a very time-consuming process. Okay, so why artificial intelligence? Why am I interested in artificial intelligence? And what I want to do next is tell you briefly about an AI system that we have developed over the last 8 years and are implementing here at Penn. I'm interested in AI because I'm deeply interested in how humans solve problems. So if each of us in the room is given a particular data set, a clinical data set, a research data set, what's the thought process that we go through in approaching how we analyze that data? Each of us has different expert knowledge. We have different technical skills, different quantitative skills. A statistician would approach the data differently than an epidemiologist would, or a clinician. But we all have expert knowledge, right? We all have training, we all have domain-specific knowledge, we all have quantitative knowledge, technical skills working with machine learning, biostatistical methods, et cetera. And so each of us would feel our way through a data set in a different way, but drawing on our expert knowledge. And so I'm deeply interested in that process, and how can we get computers to do that? How can we get computers to tinker and explore and interact with and analyze data as a human would? So we've developed a system that we call EMERGENT, which is an acronym for a long series of words that I'm not going to say. But here's the basic idea. This is an algorithm to move beyond sort of traditional machine learning for building models of data. So here, I'm just going to go through this quickly, and I'm going to skip over quite a few details, but if you're interested, let me know. I'd be happy to tell you more later or send you some of our papers. The first goal is to build a model, and what we do is provide a list of mathematical functions of different types: arithmetic, relational, logic, other things like min and max. And this list could be anything you want, anything you think is important for solving the problem. And then you provide a set of variable inputs. These could be clinical variables, demographic variables. I've got genetic. I'm going to give you an example from human genetics here, but this is your variable set, that your measures that you're interested in. And what the algorithm does initially is select these randomly, pulls some variables out, some features, some operators, some functions, and then pieces them together. And this is the way we represent the model here. So we've got two features here with the greater than function. The result of that goes on a stack and is compared with the equal to function to the numeric values for this feature, and then that gets put on the stack and then added to the next one. And this produces a numeric value, and then you can do this over an entire data set and then use that to predict some clinical outcome. So we generate lots of these, typically thousands of these, and then we need to evaluate them. And I'm a big fan of multi-objective optimization, multi-objective evaluation, and again, that's what humans do, right? So in machine learning, it's common just to have one objective. You're trying to minimize some error. And the reality is that humans, we're all multi-objective creatures. When you go buy a car, you're looking at the color of the car, you're looking at the size, the shape, the make, the model, the gas mileage, all those kinds of things. And you as you look at different cars, you're weighing each of those factors simultaneously to make a decision on which car you're going to buy. And I think that's how we should be approaching data analysis, especially problems in healthcare. So in this particular example, we're trying to minimize some error, we're trying to minimize the complexity of the model, and then we've got this third thing in here, interesting, right? As humans, we look at a solution and we say, oh, that's interesting, or oh, that's not interesting. I'm not interested in that. And we have this sense of what's interesting to us. And again, so we should be able to provide measures of interestingness to our system and let the system work with that. And then once you have a set of models, you need to be able to introduce variability into those models. So if this is your model here, a simple model with two features in it with the division function, you might decide you want to add a new function and a new feature. And the question is, how does the system do that? Does the system do it randomly? And it can do that with some probability, or it can do so based on sources of expert knowledge. So if you're adding a new feature to the model, if you're studying diabetes and you want to add a feature, you might add a feature that has something to do with glucose metabolism. And so it's drawing on the expert knowledge about the disease process, the pathobiology, to build new models. And we have different functions in the system, things like delete, add, copy, and these can come into different combinations, different lengths to introduce variability in the models. And these get rewarded based on their ability to generate better models. And then these are the things manipulating the solutions, and then we also manipulate these and change these and to try to come up with better ways to manipulate models. So just putting this all together, again, I'm skipping over a lot of details because of lack of time, but this is what the system looks like when we put it together. We generate lots of solutions, thousands of these, and they compete with each other in this multi-objective optimization. We have these solution operators here that change these solutions, and these get rewarded based on whether they generate better models over time. And then we have this higher level that changes the solution operators themselves. And what really makes this artificial intelligence is the ability to not only learn from its experience, going into this memory here, but being able to draw on different sources of expert knowledge that the user provides this to the system. So what's exciting about this is not only can the system learn to generate a good solution to a problem, but it can at the same time learn how to generate good solutions. And that's important because if we see that it comes up with a good strategy for generating better solutions, we can go back and look at what sources of expert knowledge, for example, that it's using, and that tells us something about the problem itself. So let me just show you a quick example of how we applied this to the study of glaucoma. I had a R01 from the National Eye Institute for a couple of years to work on eye diseases. I think of a disease like glaucoma as being a function of lots of genes, lots of environmental factors, lots of covariates. We think about the complexity of the biochemical and physiologic systems that give rise to glaucoma. And it's really all these things working together that influences our trajectory toward risk of a common disease like this. And so what we did was through our AI system at this problem on a data set that had 500,000 genetic measurements over several thousand human subjects. So it was a big data problem. And we ran the system thousands of times independently and then fed the solutions into new runs, eventually collapsing on a final run. And this is what the best model looked like. So it consisted of 6 genetic features here at the bottom. You can see the mathematical functions here. These are the accuracies of the classifier at each level, which allows us to do kind of an interpretation of the different parts of the model. The model overall predicted glaucoma successfully a little over 61% of the time. And this is just looking at the top of the pyramid of the independent runs, looking at some of the pieces of the model. What we found were there were these modular components of pairs of SNPs, genetic measurements. And what you can see is that the system is discovering the same pairs of genetic factors, virtually the same pairs, in completely different sets of independent runs. So it's gravitating toward the same features. And this was our overall best model that we reported. We did some interpretation. We showed that there were strong non-additive interactions between the different features in this model. These are the pairs of genetic factors that are strongly interacting, and their synergistic interaction effects were stronger than their individual effects, which was very exciting. So, and then we did a biological interpretation of this, looking at functional genomics data. So we took these genes, and by the way, only one of the genes that was found in this model had previously been associated with glaucoma. So the other 5 were new novel discoveries that had not been reported in the literature for glaucoma. So we plugged this into a database developed at Princeton by Olga Troyanskaya that looks across thousands of experiments, looking at gene expression levels and how they change, and using that to infer gene-gene relationships. So we plugged our genes into that system, and this is what it gave us. So these are our 6 genes here. This is the known glaucoma risk factor that it found. Interestingly, all of these have biological ties inferred from real experiments with VEGF, the vascular endothelial growth factor, which is important because that is a known target for treatment of eye diseases, including glaucoma. So anti-VEGF is being explored as an active drug target. So if you think about it, the AI system found 5 novel genes never reported for glaucoma. The expert knowledge we gave it was actually purely statistical knowledge. And it was able to come up with 5 things that are tied to VEGF, a known drug target. I was very impressed by that, and found it and people we've talked to in the field are very excited about this. So these genes perhaps represent new possible drug targets. Okay, so just a few last slides to finish up. As I told you, I think visualization is the future of informatics. Data is just too large, too complex. We have to experience it in a visual way. Everybody just uses it Microsoft Excel or other spreadsheets, and it's a very unappealing way to work with data. And one of the things I'm particularly interested in is how we take clinical data, research data, turn that into information using visualization, and then this middle layer here, once you have visualizations of your data, how do you turn that into ideas, research questions, which then leads to knowledge and discovery? This is how we want to work with our data. This is not how we want to work with our data. Nobody likes using Excel. I've not met a single person in my entire life that says, oh my God, I love Excel. I cannot wait to get to work today and turn on Excel and spend the whole day looking at Excel spreadsheets. If there's any of you in the audience, come up and see me afterwards, because I'd like to find out why. So visual analytics, visualization is another one of these disciplines that was overhyped and underdelivered, right? The idea is you could visualize your data and the answers would just jump out. Visual analytics, I think, is going to take it to the next level, and it's the idea of integrating your visualization with human-computer interaction, with 3D technology, with data analysis, high-performance computing, and rolling these all into one. And we're doing this here at Penn. We are right now in the process of building what we're calling the Penn IBI Idea Factory, which will be a 500 square foot immersive visual discovery laboratory at the University of Pennsylvania. This will open in February. And we want to build into this the AI capability so that you can not only see lots of information and data, but launch AI analyses and get feedback and et cetera. All right, I'll just touch on two more quick things and then I'll finish. No boundary thinking is the idea that informaticians are in the unique position to look across disciplines, to look across knowledge bases, right? To be agnostic to pathology, physiology, genetics, et cetera. And that as such, we can look across knowledge sources and then use that to develop perhaps more impactful scientific questions. Because if you're a ophthalmologist studying glaucoma, you're trapped in that narrow view of the world, that narrow knowledge base, and certainly you can ask good questions, but your questions are not informed by all other disciplines. And I think informaticians have a very important role to play in helping to ask better questions. And we've published a couple papers on this if you're interested in working on a book right now. And then the last thing I'll mention is the information-driven scientific discovery. Informaticians, statisticians over the years have often been seen as consultants or the people you bring in, right, to do your data analysis or at the end of the day. And I think we're in a unique position now as informaticians to drive the science, to be the question askers, and part of that is because data is accessible now. We have access to lots of data, publicly available data from our own institutions, and we're in a much better question to ask our own scientific questions, use other people's data, publicly available data or institutional data to ask questions, do our own analyses and our own interpretation, of course in collaboration, but it used to be the other way around, that the clinician, the epidemiologist, et cetera, would drive the question asking and we would be the collaborators, the consultants. All right, I'm going to stop there. Just want to thank my students and postdocs who do all this work, and I want to thank in particular Doug Hill, was the computer programmer that did all the artificial intelligence work. We're actually in the process of porting that system and integrating it into the visualization environment, so we're working on the next generation version of this now. But one of my key goals is to make this kind of technology accessible. Watson is not accessible. You need a lot of money and a lot of time to use Watson, but I think AI should be accessible, it should be usable, it should be simple, it should be in everybody's hands. Same for visual analytics, and that's what we're trying to do here at Penn, so I'll stop there.